Thank you so much, Heidi, and thank you everyone else who's joining us today. I am so honored to be here during your lunch hour. Thank you so much for giving me your time. And I hope everyone's had an amazing morning session. Thank you for the love hearts. It's 10 p.m. where I am right now, so I'm having a cup of tea, while hopefully the rest of you are having a good lunch. So I'm here in the capacity of a storyteller from Africa. And I've been doing a lot of this storytelling, mainly for children and sometimes with grown-ups. So I am going to bring out the little child in you, but hopefully that little child has grown into a bigger grown-up in you. And the story that I'm about to share is The Girl and the Sunbird. And sometimes you'll find the same story titled The Girl and the Hummingbird or The Girl and the Tutu Bird. They're all the same, variations of the same folktale from Africa. And you can trace, based on the migration of Afro descendants around the world, you'll find the same story in Australia with the Aboriginal Australian people, and other parts of the world, you find the same story, just maybe framed differently. And in the spirit of self-care, I chose this story because I believe very much in everyone's ability to really tell their own story. I tend to begin the storytelling sessions with a quote that goes like this: "The future is beginning now with the stories that we choose to pass forward." So it really is a choice. Whatever story you're telling yourself, whatever story you're holding on to, whatever new story you're working with, it really is a choice to write and tell and even perhaps sing in whatever form that story of your heart, that tune that only you can carry. So here's an old African folktale about a girl who lived in a village which had quite a lot of issues. At the time of the telling of this story, the village was experiencing drought. Therefore, there was not enough food and there was a lot of suffering as a result. So since food was so difficult to come by, people had to trap birds, dogs, lizards, and even rats just to stay alive. And one day, the villagers picked this young girl and sent her out into the bush to check out on the bird snares that they had set out. And while she went there, she found most of the bird snares were empty, all except for one, where there was one little bird, one little sunbird or a hummingbird that was caught in that snare. And the little bird did as she was told to do. So she went and picked up the bird and she was getting ready to bring it back to the village. And then the bird decided to sing the sweetest song that this girl had ever heard. So the little bird sang this song, and the girl was so moved by what she had heard. The song really resonated with the song inside her own heart. So she decided to let go of this bird and watched it fly off. And then she went back to the village empty-handed. When she arrived, the villagers asked her, "So, what did you find?" And the little girl said, "Well, there weren't any birds caught in the snare. However, there was this one little bird that sang the most beautiful song that really resonated with the song in my heart that I decided to let it go." And the villagers were so shocked, so surprised, and asked her, How could you give away the only meal we have? We're starving." And they got so angry that they dragged her by the feet and pulled her into the bush, where they built a windowless hut of thorn branches all around her and left her there, suffering in her own isolation. Now the frightened girl began crying. She cried out for help. She cried and she cried and she cried and she cried, and nobody came to rescue her. She cried so much that her tears became dry. And then she began to sing the most beautiful song, the same song that she had overheard this little bird singing. La 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 she stopped singing, she heard a sound like a bird crying, and looking up, she saw a small hole at the top of the hut. And the little bird was hovering above. And the bird was singing the same sweet song. And as it sang, it was dropping sweet, juicy fruits that landed at the girl's feet. And every day the bird returned, dropping another fruit down the hole and singing the same sweet song. And every day it sang, it made the hole bigger, bringing into the hut more light. And finally, the hole was big enough for the girl to climb through, and she was freed. And to celebrate her freedom, all the birds in the forest made a feast of fruit and nuts, which they gave to the girl and the villagers. And the villagers were so grateful that they welcomed the girl back into the village, hoping that they too could benefit from her good fortune. But the girl remembered the song of her heart, and she rejected their offer to go back into the village. Instead, she went off with the birds and found a new place to be, where she could be free, to sing her song. Now, Maya Angelou, the great Maya Angelou, wrote the book, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. Maybe some of you have read the book or have come across this work. I see a thumbs up there. Thank you. I would like to believe that Maya had maybe come across the same story and could have been the inspiration behind this story of the caged bird singing. Similar to that caged bird, so was our little girl here, caged inside a hut, unable to get out, unable to be seen or heard. Now, to unpack this story of the girl and the sunbird, I'd like to introduce a concept that originated from Africa, which I also believe is a universal conception of human flourishing. Now, this concept is known as Ubuntu, and the direct translation is humaneness, or having humanity, discovering who you really are, what values connect you with others. And Ubuntu means that in order to recognize your own humanity, you must also be able to recognize it in others. See others as you see yourself. It's basically the golden rule. Now, this is mirroring. And the more we mirror the common values that we share, the more we're able to become the authentic versions of ourselves that we so often hide from each other. The masks begin to come down when you are truly authentic. But what happens if you're unable to exercise your Ubuntu, say due to intergenerational trauma or an event you're going through right now? Maybe you're not quite feeling good about yourself. Maybe you're living in an environment that isn't really conducive to your own well-being, such as our girl in the story. Maybe your social life is actually limiting you from your own growth and potential. There are endless reasons for our inability to thrive, to fully sing, to fully be seen and heard. But it is often really not the fault of others or your external environment. In fact, it usually has nothing to do with anyone else. It has a lot to do with where you tend to focus your access to your well-being. And that has a lot to do with the story that you repeatedly tell yourself. Inner peace is the foundation of this concept of Ubuntu. A person with Ubuntu recognizes that the peace that they have is the same peace that others have. And when you are aware of the sacredness of your peace of mind, then you're able to recognize, respect, and even promote inner peace in others. This is Ubuntu in action. So Ubuntu itself is self-care in action. And in this story, we see how the young girl practiced her Ubuntu following 3 simple steps. When she was banished to the cage, this is what she did. The first thing she did was she cried out She was not afraid to express all her feelings, all her range of human emotion, anger, fear, all of it. She cried until she had no more tears left. The second thing she did is she took power back by tapping into her inner strength. She began singing, and she recognized that she had it in herself to keep being heard. The third thing she did was she accepted help from wherever help came from. And this is really important. We often think that we need help from a particular person, or that we need those who are around us who might actually be harming our own inner well-being. We expect them to change or come to our rescue, but help can come from anywhere. Accept help when it comes your way. And it was by doing these 3 simple steps that this little girl let go of her limiting beliefs and she moved on. She had enough dignity for herself to recognize that she couldn't keep staying in an abusive environment. She respected herself enough to move on and join a new community where she now felt safe, loved, and honored and respected for exactly who she was. So this last bit really teaches us that nothing is ever permanent. However, only you can decide if your situation remains as it is, or are you going to change it? You have the power to discontinue staying in a permanent state of voicelessness. You can change your inner climate and learn to adapt to new weather patterns around yourself. So I'd like to remind us all that we are birds with a song in our hearts. We often like to think that the song is unique to us. But really, I'm here to tell you that the song is not unique to you, but your voice is. It's the same song, different voices. We all want to be seen, we all want to be heard. And how you sing this particular song is unique only to you. How you tell your story is your version, no one else's. So we're all storytellers, songwriters, and our common story will not be complete until we each are able to find in us the purest voice that only each one of us can find to be able to sing this common song. And we're here to create the greatest symphony of all our time. If trees can sing, if birds can sing, if all other animals can sing, so we too can. So Ubuntu is a song of our human condition, and we are each the instruments that complement this particular song of humanity. And as any good music teacher will say, the voice is the first natural instrument that allows us to communicate with each other. So I invite you to find that metaphorical song, that metaphorical voice, and begin singing the song that only you know, that only you can sing in the way that you are tuned to sing. And that's the end of the story about the girl and the sunbird.